Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of No More Kids in Scientology. And in today's episode, you guys, we want to react to a cult figure. As you've seen from the thumbnail, in what world is YouTube's Mr. Beast, the largest creator on YouTube platform, and L Ron Hubbard on the same thumbnail? What in the literal hell does a YouTube creator that goes by Mr. Beast has to do with L Ron Hubbard? And just to get started on the naming of this whole thing, you guys, let's ask ChatGPT. Yo, ChatGPT. Does L Ron Hubbard refer to himself as the Beast? Let's see what ChatGPT says, you guys. Oh, look, it says, yes, L Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, did refer to himself as the Beast. Not great, you guys. Mr. Beast and L Ron Hubbard both naming themselves the Beast. In his writings, particularly in some of his early letters and works, he identified himself with the number 666 and made references to being the Beast in a manner that seemed to align with esoteric and occult symbolism. This identification has been a point of interest and controversy. Well, I wonder why in the hell would L Ron Hubbard, a man who purported to really want to save a world, a man who purported to really want to clear a planet, be calling himself the Beast? So we're starting right away with that weird, unusual situation between L Ron Hubbard and YouTube-made cult leader, cult created leader, Mr. Beast. So there's a video here that I want to react that is going to get us into more of the details so we can respond to the similarities and the differences between YouTube's cult created leader, Mr. Beast, and none other than literal L Ron Hubbard, another cult leader propped up by the American government to, scam kids.
Okay, so if by the end of this video I don't convince you that Mr. Beast is one of the most manipulative people in the history of social media, I will shave my head live on camera.
Well, we won't be shaving our head in this video, you guys, and we don't have to convince you of anything. But needless to say, yeah, one of the most manipulative people that didn't have social media at the time, L Ron Hubbard. And now with the advent of social media, with the advent of tech companies propping up, let's make sure that that's clear for the people in the back of YouTube that are the ones platforming the scam. Because a lot of hoo-ha is made about Mr. Beast, but not enough strings are pulled to really get to the bottom, to really understand who is enabling Mr. Beast. And is his YouTube rise really as organic as all these tech companies that act as modern day studios, throttling accounts such as ours, advocating for children, and, pouring accounts on steroids, the ones that are targeting to abuse kids? So really sit with that, parallel of who the enablers are for this modern Mr. Beast, not L Ron Hubbard, but actual Mr. Beast, the YouTuber.
but you have to watch this entire video because people's lives are actually at stake. So as always, I will be using my master's degree to take a more business approach in analyzing the most recent Mr. Beast allegations, but please be warned, we will be discussing some extremely disturbing topics. So there's really only one thing on this planet that scares me more than somebody that will do anything for money, and it's somebody that will do anything for fame. Because unlike money, which is something people typically aspire to because it is quantifiable and it gives them security and it gives them power, fame is much more complicated because it fulfills a much deeper and more profound psychological need for somebody to have constant validation, recognition, and love. And at the source, this relentless pursuit of fame is going to be the ultimate downfall of Mr. Beast, which we are currently seeing manifest in the stories we're hearing about him now.
So right away there, who else was so obsessed with fame? Who possibly else was obsessed with adulation, fanfare, people becoming obsessed and intoxicated on him? Glad that y'all asked, because that is exactly who convicted L Ron Hubbard was. The convicted felon that he was obsessed with having people really follow his technology, really think of me great, really hip, hip, hooray, really clap at the end of every course completion, really say that I'm so great and say that I'm so wonderful. So just understand and earmark that right there, because that is exactly the next point that we're going to get into right now.
So, in his pathological pursuit of fame and adulation, Mr. Beast utilizes an incredibly powerful public relations tactic known as performative philanthropy. So,
Performative philanthropy. Isn't that great, you guys? In what world is Mr. Beast being enabled by YouTube to push this performative philanthropy, the same shit with a different air freshener, when you put that exact filter into looking at the scam that targets children that goes by the name of Scientology? Performative philanthropy is what it is. And it's a highly successful PR tactic because, again, PR is being used to embellish, to cover up the stench of the fraud, as you'll see right now.
Performative philanthropy involves highly publicized acts of charity that serves two purposes. The first is obviously to increase the size, the scope, and the overall public favorability of the Mr. Beast brand. And the second is to insulate him from all forms of criticism.
So right there is exactly what we're talking about in terms of Scientology. What do they do? This performative philanthropy that they do. Google Scientology and see how many press releases they put out purporting that they're really saving a world, that they're really wanting to help a planet, that they're really doing what it is being called out, performative philanthropy. So L Ron Hubbard, who literally took that definition and made it on steroids, is been often imitated, never duplicated by other people that want to go up to that level of, oh, look at me, the big philanthropist. Oh, yeah, I really want to save a world. Oh, yeah, don't criticize me. We're seeing the amount of censorship coming from YouTube, going back to how it's not as organic as these tech companies have been pitching falsely. That your account, as long as you do your account, oh, we'll see. We'll leave it up to faith and see if your channel really grows. Oh, look at that. All these channels growing. So all of this is literally corrupt behind the scenes situations, as it is in the case of Mr. Beast, YouTube's biggest celebrity, biggest, most propped up celebrity.
So these incredibly curated and widely broadcasted acts of good are in reality tax-deductible investments done within the confines of the Mr. Beast Corporation. So while he is giving away money, it is an investment in the company itself, and it is increasing the monetary value of the brand. So not only is Mr. Beast not losing money when he gives it away in forms of charity, he's actually making that money back. Because every time he has a viral video, this increases the size and the financial value of the actual stock of his company. And although it is a private company, it's not publicly traded, a private corporation acts in the exact same way. So for every $100,000 that Mr. Beast gives away, he gains $500,000 in brand value in the actual stock of the corporation. So not only does this performative philanthropy increase the financial value of Mr. Beast Corporation, but also makes his personal brand bulletproof because it manipulates his audience into seeing him as inherently good, who aren't able to understand the nuances of these businesses and how they run. And anybody that dares criticize him or question him is dismissed as a hater. And somebody else.
So right away, we have a very important point to make as to what is different here. Scientology parents that have for years gone and spoken about how, oh my God, I gave them $1 million. I was doing it for charity. I really thought we were going to save a world. Those $1 million were reported to the IRS so that those Scientology parents, while funding hotels that make a practice of ensnaring underage kids in unthinkable, indefensible slave contracts, which no child is of age to consent to become a slave. Let's make sure that that's clear, because apparently in this country, America, United States of America, that has a lot of child trafficking laws on the books, that has a lot of anti-slavery rhetoric written in its constitution, is still allowing underage kids to become ensnared in this disgusting scheme. And all the Scientology parents who fund the hotels, who purport to be giving $1 million for planetary clearing, is doing nothing but enabling, giving money, endorsing. It's like, what is that saying? Put your money where your mouth is. That is exactly where all the Scientology parents have put their credibility and have put in their, enabling, co-conspiring to put up these hotels, to put up a place where children get abused. And although we haven't gotten up to that point, you're going to see how this is going to come full circle as to who Mr. Beast is actually targeting to abuse.
Else that has very successfully used performative philanthropy as a public relations tactic is Bill Gates, going from one of the most hated people in America to one of the most adored because of these philanthropic acts that.
Yeah, Bill Gates, who was, running around with the other philanthropist, Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't that great, you guys? That Bill Gates became adored while he was literally running around with another so-called philanthropist, Jeffrey Epstein. What was Jeffrey Epstein up to? Glad that y'all asked, because we're going to see how even that situation is going to go right back to who? YouTube's Mr. Beast. So
that, although are good and did result in some good things for society, overall, as a human being, if you look into him, it's very clear to see that he has very malicious intentions. And an incredibly common defense of Mr. Beast is, I don't care what he does privately, and I don't care if his intentions are good or bad, as long as the outcome is still good. And this is a fair argument, because at the end of the day, there were still homes that were built. There are people who have access to clean water who didn't have access before, and he has given away money to people who have probably utilized it in positive ways in their life. That's a fair argument. But what's not a fair argument, what I think is pretty idiotic, is people who think just because of that, he's immune to all forms of criticism. I think it is a healthy, functioning society to look at the most popular, most influential, and powerful social media creator in the history of the internet and hold him to a higher standard and not let him get away with bad behavior, which we'll get into now, simply because he has done some acts of philanthropy.
And that is literally today's lessons. Don't be fooled by fake philanthropy. Don't allow fake philanthropy to cloud your judgment and to cloud the perception of what's actually taking place, what is actually being covered up by said performative philanthropy, because that is really where it gets so egregious. That is really where it gets very Epstein on steroids, literally.
And this point is particularly true when analyzing Mr. Beast because he is arguably the most influential figure amongst children. So us as adults may be
the most influential against, for who? For children. So let me get this straight. YouTube platform, Mr. Beast, allowed him to, spike his account to how many millions of followers. And he's targeting underage kids. Now, all of us that have worked on this platform have gotten what? Demonetized, throttled, shadow banned. For what exactly? For what these tech companies are doing to small creators that are actually organic, that are actually advocating for a cause. So juxtapose that against enabling the abuser, enabling the one that they know they can see from all their demographics, from all their analytics, what type of ages are being targeted and consuming this type of disgusting scam content that you're going to see. We're going to get actually more into the exact facts of that.
Be able to perceive the curated nature of his content and understand the nuances of what's happening behind the scenes, but children do not. All they see are acts of good. For me as an adult, when I watch Mr. Beast's content, I don't see a benevolent person. I see a person who has exclusively built his brand upon allowing financially destitute people to perform for money, to engage in public forms of humiliation, psychological torture, and even put themselves in physical danger because they are so financially destitute and it is life or death for them. They will literally do anything for money. So instead of asking the deeper questions of how we've allowed our society to get to this point, we just laugh and watch his stupid little videos, not even thinking about the greater impact that this incredibly powerful, influential person is having on the younger generations. And speaking of the younger generation, there really is no polite way to say this, but Mr. Beast's best friend of 16 years, Ava Chris Tyson, has now recently been credibly accused of messaging minors, interacting with them inappropriately, and being an actual PDF file. And this is somebody who was heavily involved with the Mr. Beast Corporation for over a decade, once again was best friends with Mr. Beast, and was even his right-hand man for a very long period of time, and then also very shortly, temporarily, his right-hand woman. So there is no greater example to me of proof of what I've said in the first half of this video, that Mr. Beast is immune to criticism.
And just like that, we are in this territory of why in the literal hell are cult-like figures, Mr. Beast from YouTube, L Ron Hubbard from Scientology, so obsessed with protecting PDF files. Why is it that PDF files can be found in charitable philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein, L Ron Hubbard, convicted felon, and now here on YouTube's Mr. Beast? Why is that such a common denominator of these literal cult-like figures? You guys tell me what your thoughts are on that, because yet again, we're finding another similarity that is just absolutely nauseating.
because although we are talking about a different individual, the type of behavior that you enable within your company is very telling, and who you are best friends with is also extremely telling. Think about your best friend, someone you've known for 16 years. You know intimate details about their life. You're going to tell me you didn't know what they're engaging with publicly, because a lot of these allegations are things that this individual did on a public Discord server, on Twitter, and on videos. Ava Chris Tyson literally posted a video on YouTube where he was promoting the link for people to view Revenge of Jeanette McCurdy. Mr. Beast was aware of these allegations from a very long period of time, and he stuck with this individual because it was politically inconvenient for him to throw somebody who was recently transgender under the bus. But now that it's threatening his own personal brand, he's willing to do anything to save himself.
Well, and again, in what world was Mr. Beast not aware? You guys can look at the Discord. You can look at what's been made public to be making these statements about this person that Mr. Beast was all about protecting, all about platforming, all about literally everything you're seeing here. And it is sickening that the same thing keeps repeating itself with these cult-like figures propping up literal degenerates.
So I do believe, as somebody with a fully developed frontal lobe, that Mr. Beast was well aware that this individual was a child predator, and I honestly don't think that he cared until it threatened the actual only thing he cares about, which is his public perception. And he's also displayed a complete disregard for his impact on children through his illegal lottery scheme.
That part. See, you don't just have to be essaying kids to be abusing kids. You can also be economically exploiting them. You can also be engaged in a scheme to defraud them by, illegal lotteries, by having them sign billion-year contracts to become slaves for adults. Apparently, all of that is very available in America for you to do. A country that is definitely running on the slogan, making child slavery great again. And let's figure out how many ways we can defraud, abuse kids, scam them. And, who cares? Because who is going to ever complain? After all, who are the victims here? Children. And America doesn't really stand up for children. It has a horrific track record. You can look it up. U.S. gymnastics team failed. The scam that happened with all the Jeffrey Epstein victims, another horrific failure of America to protect innocent young kids that need advocates, that need people that stand up for them, that need people to say, no, you cannot do this. What in the literal living hell? So, but a lot of focus has been made about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast has an enabler. Mr. Beast was given a platform by YouTube, who obsesses, scrutinizes all manner of content in their platform. There's all manner of ways you can get strikes. You can get, oh my God, is this content going to be viewed for kids? Yes or no? In what world is YouTube unaware? Because that is really the question that needs to be getting asked right the F now. The people that platform this man, the people that enabled the systemic, institutional fraud of kids are the enablers and are the ones that are getting zero scrutiny because they pretend that, their platform is something that, they have nothing to do with. But you know what? They have a lot to do with it. They really do have a ton to do with it.
So this was actually something that I learned about from an ex-Mr. Beast employee who posted a very thorough YouTube video I'll put here. Everybody should go and watch it. And one of the things he discussed was that an individual who worked at Mr. Beast Corporation actually publicly admitted that the chocolate company Feastables is 70% a lottery and 30% a chocolate company. Learning this was extremely alarming to me because there are very valid reasons why there are such strict FTC guidelines against illegal lotteries and against advertising gambling to children. So the fact that this is how Mr. Beast perceives his company and just has a total disregard for what it could mean on a mass scale to introduce addictive gambling behaviors to his very young, impressionable audience just shows me the type of person that he is. It's unethical and it's dangerous. But how can I even be
unethical and dangerous to be doing an illegal lottery scheme on young, impressionable children? So another common denominator of Mr. Beast from YouTube and L Ron Hubbard, both target kids, both want to monetize underage kids, and both get enabled and platformed and given the opportunity to do that in these United States of America that couldn't be more, running around playing dumb on a full-time basis, unable to enforce a shred of law because apparently in this country, the laws are not anywhere to be found to be enforced. It's just a bunch of like, oh yeah, we're really going to apply the laws, and then they're not getting applied. And, these frauds can just go on for year after year after year until some actually whistleblowing person starts connecting the dots and starts actually, making these points.
Be surprised at this point when exploiting the hopes and the dreams of his audience is exactly how he's become the most subscribed to YouTuber in the history of the world. Maybe I'll be the one that gets the Ferrari. Maybe I'll be the one that gets on the next Mr. Beast video and wins a chocolate factory. You won't be, because as exposed in that video I mentioned previously, he exclusively chooses friends and family members to engage in these activities and even hires actors for his videos. It's all an illusion. And this entire illusion around his persona has been driven by his insatiable desire for fame, which is manifested into the only obvious conclusion, where he has now had to escalate his content to more dangerous levels to the point that people's safety is now being put at risk. Which brings us to the allegations surrounding the Mr. Beast games, which I believe is the smoking gun that proves what I have believed all along, which is Mr. Beast does not view people as human beings, but as props to be used. And the proof of this is now that Mr. Beast...
So that is what all these cult horrific exploiters do. From L Ron Hubbard on down to Mr. Beast. Dehumanize, commoditize. And again, if this was an all grown-up situation, it would be one thing. If grown-ups want to sign up to be dehumanized, if grown-ups want to sign up to be humiliated and to be abused and to be tortured, that is on those grown-ups to do. But the fact is that from Scientology to Mr. Beast, they're going for a group. They're going for a demographic who doesn't understand what in the hell is actually going on. And they're actually exploiting that naivete, exploiting that gullibility, exploiting that vulnerability, which they're highly aware about, to get what? To get something for themselves. It couldn't be more disgusting and it couldn't be more obvious, but leave it to YouTube, the one that platformed this man. Give it to these United States, then the IRS, the ones that platform Scientology, to, play dumb on a full-time basis. Because once again, the enablers play dumb while the predators go and prey on children. So YouTube is the ones that enabled Mr. Beast. The IRS, the United States Internal Revenue Service, are the ones that are enabling Scientology.
Beast has been paid $100 million to put together this game show for Amazon Prime. He is running it the exact same way he's run all of his YouTube videos.
And now you have Amazon Prime entering into the scene. And what does that mean? It's another tech company. You guys, another tech company that has access to what? To analytics. That has access to what? To data. that has access to what? To understand what this man is doing. And imagine Amazon Prime goes, oh, you know what we really need? To give $100 million to this YouTuber who, where is the literal shred of due diligence that Amazon Prime did in order to tap this man and in order to give him $100 million? Because right about now, we would love to hear from Jeff Bezos to start typing that letter real quick. Why my company gave $100 million to a man with all the analytics to show was exploiting kids, with a man to show his product, a chocolate bar that's being used as an illegal gambling tool for kids. I mean, how ridiculous can it really be?
With a flippant disregard for people's emotional and physical safety. The only difference now is that because it's on a larger scale, he is subject to more scrutiny, and it's being done with an official streaming platform. He is subject to legal, to HR, and to unions that are all freaking out because people are not receiving their medication. They're having seizures. There are hospitals being overrun with people who are having broken bones because this is what happens when we allow somebody to remain unchecked for such a long period of time. This did not happen in a vacuum. This was the obvious trajectory and the end conclusion to somebody who is never held accountable.
Somebody who is never held accountable, a la L Ron Hubbard, who literally was convicted as a felon, but was allowed to just be on the run, was allowed to just run away, go to his ship, traffic Shelley Miscavige at 12 years old, go grab David Miscavige at 16 years old, go grab as many kids as he could get his hands on, all provided by the Scientology parents who were just so incredibly smitten by this convicted felon that, they said, oh, you know what I really need to do to save our world? Enslave my children. That's what would be really great to save our world. So yet again, you see these horrific monsters being enabled, being helped, being platformed from L Ron Hubbard to Mr. Beast, literally.
Because they're seen as this amazing philanthropist when they're not. And these games are still going on as we speak. So I strongly believe that someone needs to step in immediately before an actual tragedy happens. It's reminding me exactly of what happened with David Dobrik, who had such a disregard for his friend's safety that he escalated his content to the point that it almost unalived one of them. And there are actually many parallels between David Dobrik and Mr. Beast. The only difference is that Mr. Beast is significantly smarter, which is why he's gotten away with this behavior for such a longer period of time. So,
and you know who's significantly smarter than even Mr. Beast? L Ron Hubbard and his minions, who insulated themselves away from all legalities to run disgusting operations, including but not limited to run out of commercial buildings and hotels where, there was not going to be any scrutiny thanks to the IRS granting them this idea that somehow a literal hotel functioning as a hotel, adults coming in, checking in, getting room service, getting their literal rooms cleaned by children, underage kids, is a wonderful religious thing. So, yeah, L Ron Hubbard literally set the standard on how to be a full-blown dehumanizer, and then found a loophole so that no one would touch him. And 74 years later, he's still at it, abusing underage kids. And the two people that he mentions here, David Dobrik and Mr. Beast, well, their scam is really catching up to them, and it's catching up to them quickly. And, Amazon is really going to have to start explaining the $100 million that they gave this complete and utter fraud, child abuser, content creator that really wants to go, oh yeah, I'm going to be a great philanthropist by exploiting underage kids. No philanthropy is being done while kids are being exploited and abused. Let's say that for the people in the back pretending that their little Scientology is really all about philanthropy while putting kids in unconscionable, disgusting, unthinkable contracts of becoming slaves. No philanthropy is happening thanks to YouTube platforming this man to target underage kids, to illegally ensnare them in so-called bullshit lotteries. That in what world are those lotteries going on live streams, and YouTube is unable to do a shred of a thing? Really, YouTube?
But let this be a reminder that if you like an influencer like Mr. Beast, holding them accountable is not negative. It's actually the very thing that will prevent their downfall. Because anyone with this much fame and this much power who goes unchecked for such a long period of time will inevitably live long enough to see themselves become the villain.
Absolutely. And the villain he literally has become as he's joined the ranks of other fraudsters that have made it their life mission, a la L Ron Hubbard, to ensnare underage kids in things that are unconscionable and indefensible. This other fraudster propped up by YouTube. In what world is the YouTube leadership gonna really claim that they have no idea when they're the ones providing all the analytics and the metrics to Mr. Beast, so that he could use these level of illegal lotteries, online illegal lotteries, to gain traction, to gain money from underage kids that were watching his videos? Because that's what America needs to start asking itself right about now. Does this country have laws in the book? Or does this country just write platitudes on a piece of paper? We really have a constitution that says, you know, slavery is abolished except if you're a child in Scientology. We really have all these laws that says you can't do illegal lotteries except if you're, you know, part of the biggest YouTube phenomenon being pushed by this tech company, Google and YouTube and Amazon. So tech companies couldn't be up to their neck and ears in pretending that this problem has nothing to do with them and, oh, we had no shred of a literal clue. Well, you know what? It's time for YouTube to get a shred of literal clue. So I appreciate you guys. Like this video. Make sure you haven't been unsubscribed, because yes, you believe it or not, YouTube has been unsubscribing people because we're advocating for kids. And apparently there's people in this world that are inconvenienced when the kids get advocates for themselves, because it disrupts their fraud. It disrupts their ability to have unfettered access to children. Unfettered access that YouTube is what? Brokering. Unfettered access to children that Scientology parents are brokering with the Scientology executives to get locked up in the hotels. So yes, Mr. Beast, meet the other Mr. Beast. And, you know, go look in a mirror and see if you gain a shred of self-awareness to see how you can be going around talking about having this big game about you really want to save a world, a la L Ron Hubbard, while all you were doing was getting access to underage kids that you could defraud. Disgusting. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.